What's up, Warlord Squad? My name is Anime Warlord, and welcome back to the channel. One of my biggest loves in the world is movies. I've been a movie fan for as long as I can remember. I don't know the exact number of movies I've watched during my 27 years of being on this earth, but I do know I've watched a lot. So for today's video, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 classic movies that still hold up. I'm going to be brutally honest here, this is one of the toughest countdowns I ever had to make because I was introduced to a lot of classic movies in my lifetime. Now before we begin, there are a few rules for this countdown. Number 1, Disney movies will not be featured. That will be another can of worms open for another day. Sorry, Disney fans. Number 2, this will only include films dating back to past decades such as the 90s, 80s, 30s, etc. The decades that were excluded off the list include the 2000s, the 2010s, and of course the current decade that we're in right now, the 2020s. And finally, number 3, I don't think that one movie on this list is better than the other because I'm recommending all of these films. Like always, everything that I say here is just my opinion. If you disagree with my list, that's totally fine. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into the list. Here are my top 10 classic movies that still hold up. Number 10. Okay, kicking off my list is one of the most underrated 60s movies of all time. This is Chitty Bang Bang from 1968. I watched this repeatedly on my VHS player back in the good old days. This was the first 60s movie I ever watched as a child, and I have great memories bonding with one of my late uncles with this movie too. This was also the first musical movie I ever watched as a child as well, so if anybody asks me why I love musical movies so much, I happily reply, it's all thanks to Chitty Bang Bang from 1968. Some of the songs in here are major earworms, and it still puts a smile on my face all these years later. This movie also introduced me to the legendary Dick Van Dyke. So if you ever invite your family over for like a movie night or something, or you want to get yourself into 60s movies, I highly recommend you get yourself a physical copy of Chitty Bang Bang. Once again, the songs in here are major earworms. This movie is entertaining from start to finish. It's one of the most underrated movies of the 1960s. And I guarantee you, Dick Van Dyke will honestly have you laughing throughout the whole entire thing as well. Alright, on to the next film. Number 9. The 90s. A decade I was born in, and one of my favorite decades in regards to movies. This is my favorite 90s film of all time. This is James Cameron's 97 blockbuster smash, Titanic. Titanic is an absolutely fantastic film that is loved by all, including me. This film will make you feel like you're in a time capsule, and you travel all the way back to the year 1912, in which Titanic took her first voyage, and unfortunately, her last. The cast is amazing. I felt like 90s movies have reached their all-time peak with this film, and I still stand by that statement today. This movie still makes me smile, laugh, and even cry. Even though Jack and Rose are fictional characters, but from the way Cameron had made them and who he cast to play them, they felt real. Hell, another character that was written into this true story was Cal. Cal felt real too, and Billy Zane, the actor who portrayed him, brought him to life. Okay, I'll keep it short and precise. All the actors brought life to their roles. Fictional or real, passengers and crew portrayed by the actors were fantastic. This is one of the many reasons why James Cameron's Titanic is my favorite 90s movie of all time. Every single time I watch it, I always find something new to appreciate about it. I call that the Akira treatment. Number 8. Friends come in all shapes and sizes, but a friendship between a human being and an alien is quite frankly out of this world. This was my first Steven Spielberg movie and the movie that got me into the sci-fi genre as a whole. I forgot how old I was when I first saw E.T., but I do remember I used to own a VHS copy of it. This movie can still get a laugh out of me all these years later. The Halloween rescue scene plays rent-free in my head, and this movie still makes me cry too. I even remember helping a friend out with this film. He said to me, "Alex, why can't I ever make friends?" I said to him, "Watch a movie called E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and you'll learn that a friend or friends will come into your life when you least expect it." After he watched the film, it gave him the courage to make friends, and we're still tight today. And who says that this movie doesn't teach anything? When you watch and dig deep with E.T., you will find that it does. E.T. is an experience you will never forget watching, and I guarantee you it'll become one of your favorite Spielberg movies as it did for me. And who knows, maybe in the future I'll make a top 10 Steven Spielberg movies. Number 7. This is one of a few 90s movies I remember bonding with my eldest niece. This is the 1996 classic Matilda, based off the best-selling book by Roald Dahl. This is definitely a fun movie to watch with your family, and one of the best memories with this film I have with my eldest niece was cheering for Bruce during the infamous chocolate cake scene. Mara Wilson nailed it as Matilda Wormwood, and I personally feel like she should have gotten an Oscar or a Golden Globe for her portrayal of the telekinetic bookworm. Some other members of the cast had even brought the characters to life as well, like Danny DeVito playing Harry Wormwood. Boy, can he play a mean and nasty son of a bitch. I haven't seen this movie in years, but it still holds a very special place in my heart. I'm not even sure if I own a physical copy of the film. If I do, I look forward to watching it over and over again. And one of the biggest things that took me by surprise when I watched the film for the first time, I remember being just completely shocked when I saw the late great Paul Reubens playing an FBI agent. I'm just like, holy shit, that's Pee Wee Herman! Number 6. What do you get when you cross the world of sports with Adam Sandler? You get yourself a fun movie, and Happy Gilmore is and always will be his all-time best. And I know I'm not the only movie fan in saying that. Happy Gilmore is just fantastic, and I've seen this movie more times than I can count. I even saw this movie while flying to Florida to honor the late great Carl Weathers. This movie still makes me belly laugh. This movie still gets me excited whenever I see those amazing 400-yard power drives, and I still quote it too. I've seen this movie so many times that every line of dialogue is etched into my brain. I even played golf when I was down in Florida back in February of this year too. At first, I wanted to learn how to play golf because of this movie, but nowadays I want to learn the sport because of my mom's side of the family, and we come from a long line of golfers. I also heard that Happy Gilmore 2 is in the works. I don't know how it's going to be, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So if you're looking for a laugh-out-loud sports comedy, Happy Gilmore is where it's at. It is truly a hole-in-one. We have reached the final 5 now. Our first contender for the final 5 is none other than my favorite 80s movie of all time, and this is the one, the only, greatest 80s movie ever made, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just like Happy Gilmore, every single line of dialogue from this movie is etched into my brain too. I first saw this movie when I was just entering high school, and this is what made me a true fan of the 1980s. I didn't have a physical copy of the movie during that time, and how I got my chance to watch it whenever I could is whenever it would air on TV. This movie also teaches us big lessons on living life to the fullest. And just like Titanic, this is yet another movie I've given the Akira treatment to. And once again, that means every single time I watch it, I always find something new to appreciate. This movie is the definition of a fun movie. If somebody were to ask me to define a fun movie, I will always say Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because it truly is. It's a total blast. I also love how this movie is filmed entirely in Chicago. And plus, I know a lot of my friends and fans are 80s fans, but you can't consider yourself a true 80s fan if you haven't seen this movie yet. I'm sorry. And before we get into the next entry, I have one quick question for you. Will you say Ferris? Number 4. Here is the movie that made me a fan of 70s movies, a fan of the legendary Gene Wilder, and a huge part of my childhood. This is the 1971 classic, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This movie is absolutely fantastic, and just like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, this movie also has earworms too. Some of the earworms play rent-free in my head. The songs include Pure Imagination, I've Got a Golden Ticket, and of course, who can forget the famous Candyman song too. Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory honestly felt like a real place we could go and visit, and the child actors were incredible. During interviews, the adult cast said that the kids were very talented and they were more adult than they could ever be. I had a bit of a deja vu moment there because the adult cast in the first Home Alone said the exact same thing about working with the kids in the 1990 Unforgettable Christmas classic. If you were wondering where to start with 70s movies, this one is it. It's a sweet movie, no pun intended, and in my opinion, one of the best movies of that decade. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go have some chocolate now. Number 3. For a very long time, I've been a huge fan of board games. I've played games like The Game of Life, Candyland, and Sorry, among many others. So for number 3 on the list, we are heading into the deepest jungle with Jumanji from 1995. The craziest thing about this movie is that it was a total flop, but one of the things that made this movie great was the late, great Robin Williams. The effects for this movie when the game came to life are pretty groundbreaking. You can tell they used a lot of creative liberties from another 90s hit that came out 2 years prior, and that film was the one and only Jurassic Park. Just like the movie I talked about previously, Jumanji is yet again another big part of my childhood. Robin Williams was one of those actors that only come once in a blue moon. No matter how much critics pan a certain film, they can make it better. And who knows, since I have a top 10 Robin Williams movies in the works, maybe this might make a comeback. But I'll never tell. Number 2! This wouldn't be a great list if I didn't include this masterpiece, now would it? As you guys already know, I'm a really big Godzilla fan, and it's crazy to think that this year, this movie will be 70 years old. Make no mistake, the original Godzilla film is a straight-up horror movie, and you realize that fact when you grow older. This was the first Godzilla film I ever saw, and it is one of those classics that will stand the test of time. Everything about this movie just screams the word masterpiece. This is my second favorite Godzilla film, and my favorite one is the one that came out almost a year ago, and that is Godzilla Minus One, which is a movie I still need to talk about on my channel. Gojira is honestly the movie that not only made me the Godzilla fan I am today, this is what also introduced me to the concept of kaiju, and it also introduced me to old school monster movies as a whole. So if you're a beginner Godzilla fan and don't know where to start, I highly recommend that you start with this one. After watching Minus One, I rewatched the original one over 4 times over again. Expect to see a Minus One review soon and more Godzilla content on the channel too as well. Number 1! We have reached our final entry, and it is none other than The Wizard of Oz from the year 1939. This is not only the 30s best film, but I personally think that this may be the best film ever made. This movie has a special place in my heart because of what it means to me. My mother and I bonded through this film, and today we still know all the songs, we know every line of dialogue, and we quote this movie constantly. Now, is The Wizard of Oz my favorite movie of all time? Honestly, I haven't picked one yet. Maybe I will in the future. So if you're looking for a great film to start with getting into movies from the 30s, this masterpiece is the one to start with, and by the end of it, you'll feel like a changed person. Not only do I think this is the best movie ever made, I think this might be the most beloved one of all time. Now, this movie may be 85 years old, but you know, as time goes on and as the years go on, this movie becomes more and more beloved. So that concludes my list of the top 10 classic films that still hold up today. If you guys think I missed any other classic films, let me know in the comment section below. And who knows, maybe your pick may be featured in part 2 of this. Because let's be for real here, you guys, there's a lot of classic films out there. Alright, this just about wraps things up for today's video. If you guys liked today's video, give it a like. If you guys have anything to say about today's video, give it a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell for future nerdy videos when they come out. You guys already know who I am. I'm Anime Warlord. Stay nerdy, stay safe out there. Have a great day, have a great evening, whatever your time zone may be. And always remember to take care of yourself. And I'll see you guys again in the next video. Peace out.